A question from our viewers about the SIDE degrees in Freemasonry.
Okay.
Welcome to the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry channel. I'm Maynard Edwards, 33rd degree, along with our Assistant Grand Archivist and Assistant Grand Historian, Brother Chris Ruli, 32nd degree, K.C.C.H. And we are here to talk about, let's call them the SIDE degrees, because we had a question from one of our viewers following the video we did on Scottish Rite versus York Rite. You can watch that video above if you haven't seen it, and there's a link below as well. But the Allied Masonic Degrees, I think, is what they were asking about when we talk about those SIDE degrees. So I'm gonna start, and you tell me where I goof up. So
go ahead.
When the high degrees start, let's say 1733, not the Master Mason degree notwithstanding, but 1733, we start seeing other Masonic degrees happening. It's
right.
it's like Netflix. You know, they put out different shows. There's this is a form of entertainment as much as anything else. And so these degrees are happening, and some of them get included in Scottish Rite, some of them get included in York Rite, and then there's some that they're cool degrees, but they don't really connect to anything else in a linear fashion.
They're interesting, they have interesting stories, they may reference old degrees or other degrees, but they're sort of out of the way.
And so the AMD, the Allied Masonic Degrees, puts their arms around all that and says, these are ours.
These are ours. There's about a dozen or so degrees. They sort of were there. They were always there. Lodges were conferring them, chapters were conferring them, but then they started to create this system called the Grand Council that said, you know what, we got to start organizing these, putting them, packaging together like the other rites are doing. And by the way, these are invitational bodies, right? So what that means is, you know, it's not like you can go out and seek it. These are things that, hey, you're doing great, you know, let's say you're a master, I mean, I know that you're a member of the Allied Masonic Degrees, I'm a member of that. So it's you do good work, and then these bodies like say, he's a good candidate for these degree systems or these groups. If you're interested, come on board. You get the degrees, and then there's more of a research, there's a fraternal aspect. It's sort of just supplementing or supporting your Blue Lodge experience or your York Rite or your Scottish Rite. It's not meant to take over, it's meant to add or embellish to what you're already doing.
In Scottish Rite, in York Rite, and certainly in Blue Lodge, generally speaking, the degree work is all memorized. It's sort of like a stage play, if you will, is how the lessons are conferred.
Sure. Yeah.
AMD is done in much the same way, but because there's AMD, they tend to meet less frequently, maybe only once a quarter, maybe only a couple times a year.
Right.
And so and the degrees, you know, you might go years between seeing the same degree.
Right.
So it's less about performing the degree exactly and more like sort of walking through it as almost from a research standpoint.
Yeah, the way that I say it is this, you know, the Allied Masonic Degrees basically maintains, preserves, and exemplifies these old degrees that you would very rarely see out in the wild. I mean, these are interesting. You know, I think the most popular is probably the Royal Ark Mariner degree. There in England, there's a completely separate Grand Lodge associated just to that single degree, or there's a set of those degrees. In the United States, you get it through going through the Allied Masonic Degrees. There's the Order Secret Monitor, there's the Superintendent Architect degrees. St. Lawrence the Martyr, I think we saw that before when we went to a...
Right.
We actually exemplified going through that degree. These tend to be a lot smaller, right?
Very short, very
short degrees. And that's really one of the reasons why they didn't really know what to do with it, because it's like a quarter or a half of what an entered apprentice degree would look like. And there's not a lot of footwork. There's obviously, you know, the signs, grips, and words, but it's a lot smaller in terms of one degree than you would see at a regular class.
Right, and generally speaking, York Rite and Scottish Rite both, they tell a cohesive story. They take the first 3 degrees and then sort of continue the story.
Right.
That is, there's an allegory, there's a story in those degrees.
Yeah.
And then the Scottish Rite kind of tells it one way and the York Rite tells it another. I in modern parlance, I often say, well, you know, you got the first 3 Star Wars movies, and then you know, they go off in one direction, this one goes in another. It's sort of like Harry Potter versus the Star Wars. It's same kind of ideas.
Okay, you're mixing your IP. That's
I know,
okay.
but
hear me out.
You know,
yeah.
An orphan has special powers and goes off to save the world. An orphan has special powers a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away and goes off to save the world.
Got it. Okay.
You know, similar stories, different directions.
Yes,
if you will.
yeah. I think if to borrow your analogy, you know, this is sort of like the Clone Wars for Star Wars. You don't necessarily need to know it, but it adds great depth and great interest if you do watch.
So these are limited in size. They can't
Limited
be like
in size.
Blue Lodge,
27.
Scottish Rite. You can have as many members as you want.
27 members maximum within your council of Allied Masonic Degrees.
Unlike other Masonic bodies, there's also an attendance requirement where if you don't show up to a meeting within X period of time, and in my AMD, it is 2 years. If you don't make it to a meeting in 2 years, then they kind of move you over to emeritus status to make room for somebody who's got a little more time to participate.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal for AMD is to identify good, active Masons who are interested in research and reward them with a set of degrees that may not necessarily seen, but then you can learn more about Freemasonry, you can learn more about the Allied Masonic Degrees, you can go to Masonic Week, which I think is a very big aspect of it. The founders of the Allied Masonic Degrees were, if you notice who these guys are, they also tended to be the founders of the Knight Masons in the United States and the Philalethes and K.C.C.H and all these different groups that meet at Masonic Week. And so the idea was, there's a lot of Masonry out there in the world that we just haven't seen, and so let's bring it together. Let's bring guys who are also interested in these types of degree systems, and let's have an opportunity where we can hang out, we can talk about the degrees, we can make members, we can exemplify the degrees, we can go out and have dinner. I mean, it's a nice social thing to do.
Like if you really want to go down the Masonic degree rabbit hole, AMD is for you.
Yeah. And the organization formed as a research organization. The intent was you have these side degrees, but it opens the door for all these potential other degree systems, and go out into the world and check out all these degree systems. Other countries may have different degrees. We were talking about how the Royal Ark Mariner is its own separate thing in England and in Canada. In the United States, you go through the AMD to get to it, but then there's all these other side degrees. There's a separate body for Order of the Secret Monitor, right? Separate organization in the UK, but when you come to the United States, it goes through our system here, different systems.
So how long have the Allied Masonic Degrees been a going concern here in the US?
In the United States, 1892 was when it was called the Sovereign College, and that was actually a really interesting organization because it conferred, can you believe this, honorary doctorates on Masonry. Now that body operated for a couple decades, and then there was a group of Masons out of North Carolina. They went over to England and said, we're interested in these rituals. They come back to the United States to create the Grand Council and realize there's this Sovereign College that's been operating for a while. So they come together in the 1930s to form what we have now, which is the Grand Council. And then they basically said, well, all of us are all prominent Masons in the United States, and the George Washington Masonic Memorial is meeting in February because all the Grand Masters come. So they decided, well, why don't we start meeting when these guys start meeting?
Because everybody will be in town.
And that's really what started the modern Masonic Week concept of all these side degrees, all these groups coming in February to meet, let's hang out, let's talk about degrees.
That is the Allied Masonic Degrees in a nutshell. Obviously, this is one of those things, a minute to learn, a lifetime to master type of situation. If you're a Mason, first you have to be a York Rite Mason to join the Allied Masonic Degrees.
You have to receive Royal Arch degrees.
Yes,
right.
So then you can get involved in the AMD, but it is absolutely an invitation-only body. So it might take you a little time to figure out who in your area has, but usually you can find a space without too much trouble because people come in and they go emeritus status and things like that. So if you are interested in those side Masonic degrees, you can check out Allied Masonic Degrees. We've got their website on screen here and down in the links below. You actually have a role within the AMD because I was there in my AMD lodge. I think it was my second or third meeting ever. And here I am, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to get this degree. And in walks Ruli. I'm like, what are you doing?
I know, we both did one of these. What are you doing here? Yeah.
And he's wearing all kinds of regalia. Of course, he's an officer in this. So is it sort of a grand inspector role that you are?
Sort of, or it's sort of, for those who are familiar, like a district deputy, it's a grand superintendent. So I'm the superintendent for a region. I'm the Mid-Atlantic region, so Delaware, Maryland, and DC.
I will say these are very entertaining because they are short and they do spark conversation. So you have a short meeting to handle business, you do a short degree, again, 20 minutes, 30 minutes maybe, and then you have lunch or dinner, and you get a chance to talk to people about what you just saw. It's really pretty cool.
And I will say, one of my favorite events of every year is Masonic Week.
I know it is.
It's where all the nerds show up. It's Brett Morris, Art de Hoyos, all those nerds show up and we talk about Freemasonry.
It is Comic-Con for Masons.
It's Comic-Con for Masons.
100%. So, Brother Ruli, thank you very much. That's Brother Chris Ruli, 32nd degree, K.C.C.H, our Assistant Grand Historian, Grand Archivist. I'm Maynard Edwards, 33rd degree. Don't forget, do all the YouTube stuff. Thumbs up, subscribe, share the video. And if you have more questions, we're always eager to answer your questions. So if you want to know about a particular degree or a particular aspect of Freemasonry or even a famous Mason, let us know and we'll do our best to answer it right here on camera.